In November 2022, one of the most powerful men in the world of finance disappeared almost overnight. Not quietly, not gradually, but in a spectacular, catastrophic, almost cinematic collapse that wiped out billions of dollars, destroyed thousands of lives, and shattered the trust of millions of people across the entire globe. The man at the center of it all was 30 years old. He wore cargo shorts to meetings with presidents and senators. He slept on beanbags in his office. He played video games during investor calls. And he had convinced nearly everyone around him, from Wall Street legends to Hollywood celebrities to the most sophisticated venture capital firms on the planet, that he was the future of money itself. This is the story of Sam Bankman-Fried, the man they call the king of crypto, the man who built a $32 billion empire on a foundation of lies, the man who stole $8 billion from the very people who trusted him most, and the man who for years got away with all of it while the world applauded. But before we get to the collapse, before we get to the arrests and the courtrooms and the tears, we need to go back to the beginning, because the most dangerous frauds in history never begin with a villain. They begin with someone who looks by every measure like a hero. Sam Bankman-Fried grew up in the quiet intellectual world of Stanford University in California. Both of his parents were law professors. He was raised in a home where ideas mattered, where ethics were discussed at the dinner table, and where the question of how to live a meaningful life was taken seriously. From the outside, it was the kind of upbringing that produces exactly the sort of person Sam would later pretend to be. He was not the flashy, loud, boastful type that you might associate with the world of finance. He was quiet, socially awkward, mathematically brilliant, and driven by a philosophy that he spoke about constantly. That philosophy was called effective altruism. The core idea was simple. The most moral thing a highly intelligent, highly capable person could do with their life was to earn as much money as possible and then give it all away to causes that would do the most measurable good for the most number of people. It was a framework that combined hard-nosed economics with a kind of radical generosity, and it gave Sam Bankman-Fried something extraordinarily valuable. It gave him a story that made people lean in, a story that made people want to believe. He graduated from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology with a degree in physics. He landed a coveted position at Jane Street Capital, one of the most elite quantitative trading firms on Wall Street, a place that recruited only the sharpest mathematical minds in the world. He was good at the job, very good, but something was pulling him elsewhere. He had found his calling not in traditional finance, but in the chaotic, explosive, still largely unregulated frontier of cryptocurrency. In 2017, alongside his MIT classmate Gary Wang, Bankman-Fried walked away from the prestige and security of Jane Street and founded Alameda Research, a crypto hedge fund operating out of a rental office space in Berkeley, California. The early strategy was brilliantly simple. They exploited price differences in Bitcoin across different global markets. In South Korea, for reasons tied to local demand and limited access to foreign exchanges, Bitcoin consistently traded at a premium compared to the rest of the world. Bankman-Fried and his team would buy Bitcoin at the standard global price and sell it at the inflated Korean price, pocketing the difference thousands of times over. Those who knew about it called it the kimchi premium, and Alameda Research was extracting enormous profits from it quietly and efficiently, while almost no one was paying attention. This early success did two things. It gave Bankman-Fried real capital to work with, and it gave him confidence, a confidence that would eventually grow into something far more dangerous. By 2019, he was ready to go bigger. In April of that year, Bankman-Fried and his growing team, which now included Nishad Singh, a UC Berkeley graduate who would become one of the company's most trusted engineers, launched FTX. The name stood for Futures Exchange, and from the very first day, FTX was designed to be something different, something better than the clunky, unreliable exchanges that crypto traders had been forced to use. FTX offered sophisticated trading tools, a clean and responsive platform, innovative financial products, and a reliability that felt almost shockingly professional for an industry that had long been plagued by outages, scams, and amateur hour operations. Traders loved it. Institutional investors took notice. and almost immediately FTX was clearing over $100 million in futures trading volume every single day. In November of 2019, Binance, at the time is the largest crypto exchange in the world, made an equity investment in FTX, a signal to the entire industry that this new exchange was the real deal. FTX launched its own native token called FTT, which users could hold to receive discounts on trading fees and other platform benefits. The token sold, the platform grew, and the man behind it all is soft-spoken, unkempt, beanbag sleeping idealist with the messy hair and the permanent cargo shorts, was becoming one of the most talked about figures in global finance. But here, in this moment of early triumph, something was already happening beneath the surface. Something that prosecutors would later allege had been happening from the very first month FTX existed, something that almost no one in the world knew about. Here is where the story changes, and once it changes, nothing looks the same again. The regulators at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, just 1 month after FTX launched, Bankman-Fried had already begun using customer funds for Alameda's trading operations, not openly, not with disclosure, not with the knowledge or consent of the people whose money was being used, silently, secretly, and prosecutors would allege deliberately. To understand what this means, picture this. You open an account on FTX. You deposit $10,000 in cryptocurrency because you want to trade, to invest, to be part of this exciting new financial world. You believe because FTX's own terms of service explicitly guaranteed that your money is sitting safely in your account, waiting for you whenever you want it. What you do not know, what no one has told you, is that almost as soon as that money lands in your account, a portion of it is being quietly moved to a completely separate company, a hedge fund run by the same man who created the exchange where you just deposited your savings. And that hedge fund is using your money to place enormous high-risk bets on the cryptocurrency markets. That was the architecture of the alleged fraud at the heart of FTX. And it was built not with chaos or desperation, but with careful, deliberate design. Alameda Research was not just a company with convenient access to FTX's customer funds. It was engineered, allegedly at Bankman-Fried's direct instruction, to operate with privileges and protections that no other user of FTX could ever access. In August 2019, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission, Bankman-Fried ordered his development team to write a special exception directly into FTX's underlying code. This exception allowed Alameda Research to maintain a negative balance on the exchange, meaning it could owe essentially unlimited amounts of money and do so without any collateral requirements whatsoever. Let that sink in for a moment. While every other trader on FTX was subject to automatic margin calls, forced liquidations, stop-loss triggers, and all the standard safety mechanisms designed to prevent runaway losses, Alameda could lose as much as it wanted, draw as much as it needed from the pool of customer funds, and face no automatic consequences at all. This system was rigged, and it was rigged from the inside. Former Alameda CEO Caroline Ellison once gave an interview in which she casually mentioned that Alameda tended not to use stop losses. At the time, many in the industry shrugged it off as the bravado of a confident trading firm. Looking back, it was something far more revealing. It was a description of a firm that could afford to ignore risk because someone else, the unwitting customers of FTX, was absorbing the losses. But there was yet another layer to how this system was kept alive, and this one involved a kind of financial sleight of hand that was in its own terrible way almost elegant. FTX had created its own token, FTT. Alameda had enormous quantities of this token, quantities so large that if Alameda ever tried to sell them on the open market, the sheer volume of supply would have crushed the price almost instantly. Any honest accounting firm would have flagged this as a critical risk. The tokens could not realistically be liquidated at the price they appeared to be worth on paper. But Alameda did not record them that way. Instead, the firm reportedly valued its entire FTT holdings at full market price, as though every single token could be sold tomorrow with no impact on the market whatsoever. This inflated, misleading balance sheet was then used as collateral to borrow billions of dollars from other crypto lenders, companies like Voyager Digital and BlockFi. And Alameda also used tokens like Solana and Serum another coin that FTX and Alameda had created and promoted themselves to back even more loans. People in the industry had a nickname for these tokens. They called them Sam coins, and they were being used to prop up a house of cards that was already trembling. Meanwhile, the public face of FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried kept getting bigger, brighter, and more impossible to question. By 2021, FTX and its subsidiaries held roughly $15 billion in assets and were clearing $16 billion in customer trades every single day, accounting for 10% of global digital transaction volume. Bankman-Fried raised $1 billion from marquee investors, including Sequoia Capital and Thoma Bravo. He bought the naming rights to the Miami Heat's basketball arena. FTX Super Bowl commercials featured Larry David, Tom Brady, and Gisele Bündchen became brand ambassadors and equity holders. Steph Curry signed an endorsement deal. Bankman-Fried himself graced the covers of business magazines and sat for interviews with the most prestigious financial journalists in the world. He gave money lavishly. Hundreds of millions of dollars poured into political campaigns, pandemic preparedness funds, animal welfare charities, and academic research initiatives. He testified before Congress about crypto regulation and was treated not as a subject of scrutiny but as a trusted expert voice, someone the government could actually work with. Regulators, politicians, journalists, and investors alike looked at Sam Bankman-Fried and saw exactly what he wanted them to see: a young idealist, a brilliant builder, a safe pair of hands in a wild and lawless industry. No one was looking at what was happening behind the curtain. Then came the summer of 2022, and the first real cracks began to appear. In May 2022, the broader crypto market was rocked by the collapse of Luna, a so-called stablecoin that imploded almost overnight, wiping out tens of billions of dollars in value and sending shockwaves through the entire industry. The ripple effects were devastating. Major crypto lenders began to falter. Voyager Digital, one of Alameda's largest lenders, filed for bankruptcy. BlockFi, another significant lender to Alameda, teetered on the edge. Remaining creditors grew nervous and began executing margin calls, demanding repayment of loans that had seemed safe just weeks before. And here was the problem. Alameda, despite its reputation and despite the confident public statements from FTX leadership, did not have the liquid assets to meet these obligations. The loans secured by tokens that could not actually be sold at their stated value were coming due, and the money was not there. Not in Alameda's accounts, not in any honest accounting of what the firm actually owed. But there was one place where money existed in large quantities: FTX's customer accounts. And according to prosecutors, Bankman-Fried made a decision in the summer of 2022 that transformed a serious problem into a catastrophic crime. He allegedly ordered Alameda to dramatically increase its drawdown of customer funds held at FTX, pulling several $billion out of customer accounts to cover Alameda's mounting obligations. By the middle of 2022, Alameda owed FTX's customers approximately $8 billion, money that had been deposited in good faith by ordinary people and institutions who had absolutely no idea it was gone. The clock was now ticking, and every second brought them closer to the moment of reckoning. That moment arrived on November 2nd, 2022, when the crypto industry publication CoinDesk published a leaked breakdown of Alameda Research's balance sheet. What the report revealed stopped the industry cold. Of Alameda's $14.6 billion in reported assets, more than $7 billion were composed of FTT tokens, the very token that Bankman-Fried's own company had created and largely controlled. Another $2 billion were locked in illiquid equity investments. The supposed financial fortress of Alameda Research was, in reality, built almost entirely of paper, tokens, and promises. The reaction was not immediate. For a few days, the industry processed what it was reading. And then Changpeng Zhao, known throughout the crypto world simply as CZ, the founder and CEO of Binance, posted a single tweet that changed everything. He announced that Binance would be liquidating all of its remaining FTT holdings, citing the revelations in the CoinDesk report. The message was clear. If CDEF, the most powerful figure in the crypto industry, did not trust what he was seeing at FTX, why should anyone else? Panic spread instantly. Users flooded FTX with withdrawal requests, billions of dollars attempting to exit the platform simultaneously. Caroline Ellison publicly attempted to negotiate with Zhao, offering to purchase all of Binance's FTT holdings at $22 per token to stop the sell-off. Privately, Bankman-Fried was ordering Alameda traders to liquidate every available asset to try and maintain that price floor, throwing everything he had left into a last desperate attempt to hold the dam together. It did not work. Bankman-Fried continued tweeting reassurances to the public. FTX was fine. Assets were safe. All withdrawals would be processed. But internally, according to prosecutors, executives had already admitted to each other the truth that could no longer be avoided. FTX customer funds were not temporarily unavailable. They were not delayed by a liquidity crunch. They were gone, taken, and there was no realistic path to getting them back. By November 8th, the shortfall had grown from $1 billion to $8 billion. FTX suspended all customer withdrawals. The FTT token collapsed by more than 75% in a matter of hours. Bankman-Fried, out of options and out of time, reached out to Changpeng Zhao. In a stunning development, Binance announced it had signed a non-binding letter of intent to acquire FTX entirely, a move that briefly looked like it might save the platform and its millions of users. But 24 hours later, Binance walked away. The due diligence had revealed the full scale of the disaster. Mishandled customer funds. Federal investigations are already underway. A hole so deep that no amount of outside capital could fill it quickly enough. On November 11th, Sam Bankman-Fried resigned as CEO of FTX. That same day, FTX filed for bankruptcy. John J. Ray, the restructuring expert who had overseen the collapse of Enron, was brought in to manage the wreckage. In his first filing with the court, Ray wrote words that stunned even the most seasoned financial professionals. He said that in his entire career, spanning decades of corporate failures and financial disasters, he had never seen such a complete failure of corporate controls or such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information. A month after the bankruptcy filing, Bahamian authorities arrested Sam Bankman-Fried at his luxury penthouse apartment in Nassau. He was extradited to the United States and arraigned on charges of wire fraud, securities fraud, commodities fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. His trial began in October 2023 in a federal courthouse in New York. Former colleagues and close friends, including Carolyn Ellison and Gary Wang, appeared as witnesses for the prosecution, having already pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate with investigators. They described a company where fraud was not an accident or an oversight, but an ongoing deliberate policy directed from the top. Ellison testified about the spreadsheets, the secret balances, the deliberate concealment. Wang described the code he had written at Bankman-Fried's direction, the lines that gave Alameda's unlimited hidden line of credit into customer funds. The jury deliberated for just a few hours. They found Sam Bankman-Fried guilty on all 7 counts. In March 2024, Judge Louis Kaplan sentenced him to 25 years in federal prison. Before reading the sentence, the judge delivered a sharp and unsparing assessment. He said that Bankman-Fried had lied under oath during the trial when he claimed he had been unaware that customer money was being misused. The judge said that he knew it was wrong, that he knew it was criminal, and that what he truly regretted was not the harm caused to millions of people, but simply the fact that he had been caught. He ordered Bankman-Fried to forfeit $11 billion in assets to be distributed to victims, those victims numbered in the millions. Former customers described losing their life savings, their children's college funds, money set aside for medical emergencies, down payments on homes that would never be bought. Behind every number in the $8 billion shortfall was a human story. A plan that had evaporated, a future that had been quietly stolen, while the man responsible was giving speeches about making the world a better place. Bankman-Fried's parents, both Stanford law professors, who had once watched their son become one of the most celebrated figures in global finance, issued a statement saying they were heartbroken and would continue to fight for him. His legal team announced plans to appeal, but the verdict and the sentence had already delivered a message that echoed far beyond the courtroom. The story of Sam Bankman-Fried is not simply a story about cryptocurrency. It is not a story about regulatory failure, although that was certainly part of it. It is not even purely a story about greed, although greed was present in abundance. At its core, it is a story about the extraordinary power of a carefully constructed identity. Sam Bankman-Fried understood something that the most dangerous fraudsters throughout history have always understood. that the greatest weapon available to a person who wants to steal is not cleverness or technology or financial complexity. It is trust. He built trust methodically and brilliantly. The philosophy of effective altruism gave him moral credibility. The cargo shorts and beanbags gave him the image of someone too focused on ideas to care about appearances. The celebrity endorsements and the venture capital backing in the magazine covers gave him institutional legitimacy. Each layer of credibility made the next deception easier to sustain. By the time any serious questions began to emerge, the scaffolding of reputation had grown so tall and so wide that tearing it down felt almost unthinkable. And that is the lesson that outlasts every dollar figure and every court filing. Fraud at its most sophisticated does not look like fraud. It looks like genius. It looks like generosity. It looks like the future. The warning signs are rarely flashing lights and alarm bells. They are quieter than that. They are balance sheets that no one fully examines. They are structures that require trust rather than transparency. They are charismatic figures who are always one step ahead of the questions they do not want to answer. Before trusting anyone with your money, demand transparency. Demand independent verification. Ask who is watching, who is auditing, and who is accountable if things go wrong. Because the one thing Sam Bankman-Fried was counting on, the one thing every fraud of this scale depends on, is the assumption that you will not ask. And for years almost no one did. If this story gripped you, if it made you question, if it made you think twice, then you are exactly who this channel exists to pull back the curtain on the financial crimes, business scandals, and spectacular collapses that shape our world. Though to cinematic storytelling that goes beyond the headlines. If you want to understand not just what happened, but how and why and what it means for all of us, then hit subscribe and make sure you turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. And if this video was worth your time, a like goes a long way in helping more people find these stories. The next one is already coming, and trust me, you will not want to miss it. The next investigation is already underway, and what I found will genuinely surprise you.